Hi everyone, my name is Victor Rincon. I'm an ESL teacher at Wichita High School East, and today I am going to present tort liability. Let's start out with the definition. First, tort laws, they concern civil wrongs and addresses the duty, breach, and injury sustained to one individual as a result of another's conduct. Okay, there are two types of tort laws. There's intentional torts and there's negligent torts. Intentional torts, basically how it's stated in the name, it tends to cause harm to another. Some examples would be assault, battery, false imprisonment, and defamation. Then we have negligent torts. Okay, and then there's four elements for someone to be accused of a negligent tort, and that is the duty, breach, proximate cause, and injury. With intentional torts, like I said, there are four of them. There's assault, battery, false imprisonment, and defamation. With assault, it basically refers to an attempt for physical injury of a person to create a feeling or a fear, apprehension of injury. And then we have battery, where there's an actual physical deed. There's actually an assault. From the reading, I learned that a lot of times those two can get really confused because they're very similar. And so the way I understood it is that assault is kind of more like a threat, and then battery is more like the actual physical contact. As for false imprisonment, that is defined as intentionally confinement by direct physical means, threats, or by assertion of legal authority. And then defamation, basically false statements that could tend to harm another person's reputation. For negligent torts, we talked about four of them, which was the duty, breach, proximate cause, and injury. The duty is the responsibility we have as teachers to care for the well-being of students, the duty to protect under the local parentis in the place of the parents. And so as teachers, we always have to make sure we're supervising our students, especially because we're under the care, those students are under the care of us. As for breach, courts will judge a teacher's conduct based on how reasonable the teacher could have acted under similar circumstances, the standard reasonable care. And then we have proximate cause was the injury, something that could have been anticipated by the teacher, the foreseeability. The case that I talked in our article was a PE teacher where she was talking to a student and the students went into the locker room. Something happened to one of the students because he got pushed by another student. Therefore, the teacher got charged with the proximate cause because of the behavior the class was presenting in the middle of the class. She should have actually been in there, and there was a foreseeability that something could have happened, so she should have been in there, which falls under the negligent torts. And then injury, where in that case the student did sustain an actual physical and the mental injury, mentally, the injuries caused by that. And then I wanted to go into some of the cases that were within our readings. There was the New Jersey versus TLO. Basically what happened was that the court determined that the school searches were justified when there are reasonable grounds for suspecting the search will turn up evidence that the student has violated or is violating either the law or the rules of the school. This was always a very interesting one for me because growing up, I always thought, they can't do that. Teachers or administrators can't be searching our lockers and things like that. But apparently they can. They have every right to do so. They're not held back with the same accountability like police officers are. The problem, again, just how I felt like their Fourth Amendment illegal search and seizure was being violated by school officials when conducting physical searches with their locker rooms without a warrant. Again, it is legal because we're not held to the same statute as police officers, so therefore school personnel, we actually don't have to have a warrant. We just have to just suspect that we're going to find evidence that a student has violated the rules of the school. My thoughts were that if this happened in our school, students would be reminded by school officials that school personnel have the right to conduct search and seizures if suspected for breaking school rules. Educators don't have to meet the same criteria as police do. I would be proactive to prevent such torts from happening by Having another adult in the room if I'm ever conducting a physical search of a student. If the student is a female, I would try to have like a female security guard pat down the female student just to avoid any cases there. If I find illegal drugs, I would immediately contact our SRO to confiscate those for evidence. Definitely want to get on the ball on that because we don't want to get caught with possession of illegal drugs. And then my professional ethics here are beneficial, are critical because when conducting a search and seizure, the amount of lawsuits that have happened and so to prevent that, we just definitely have to make sure we have another adult in the room, the doors open, parent communication, and immediately contact the SRO if needed. The next case was Frame versus Comox. In this one, it was Casey Frames, an 8th grade student, and Barry Comox, the teacher, was charged with assault and battery on Frames. He was in the process of removing the student. He was being defiant, and therefore he put his hands on him, where it caused him to hit the podium and hit his head against the blackboard. The problem here was Frame argued that the teacher attacked him, therefore he saw it as assault and battery. He should have not had his hands on him. It was interesting that the court case actually was for the teacher because he had to do that to regain control of the classroom. If this ever happened, the teacher would be put on administrative leave, an investigation would be conducted. I would be proactive by reminding teachers to immediately contact security administration if a student refuses to leave their classroom. Security administration are especially trained to handle these types of students. And then my professional ethics, in my opinion, teachers or staff members should never put their hands on student. When student is completely out of control or refusing to comply, always contact security administration. We need to make sure we allow professional individuals that are trained to handle students that are out of control to handle the situation to avoid the lawsuit. And so my biggest thing is just being proactive and just making sure you call, letting my teachers know that you can call security and administration to help with that case. The next one was Flanagan versus Quinton. What happened was Brendan, a 5th grade student, was in the locker room. Student was pushed by another student. This was the teacher that I was talking about earlier. The teacher didn't accompany the youngsters into the locker room when she should have, especially when she noticed problems during the classroom instruction. The mother of Flanagan's sued the school district for the injuries that resulted in the negligence of supervision of the teacher. My thoughts on this one, if this ever happened in our schools, an investigation would definitely be conducted. The teacher would probably still continue teaching until we learn more about it, although the teacher would still be getting written up or put administrative leave depending on what policies we have in place within our school. But the student that pushed the other student would definitely be suspended for 5 days. How can I be proactive? Always by just reminding our teachers, always pay attention to our students. They're our responsibility, and never leave students unattended. That's a big one for me, and so I would just be proactive by reminding my teachers that we have a duty to supervise our students, to always keep an eye on them. And then our professional ethics that would be beneficial with regards to tort liability, always try to be one step ahead. If a teacher notices that their class is misbehaving or being more rowdy, the teacher should be more alert. So we should definitely be more alert and be more proactive and more on our game to supervise our students. The next one is Begin versus Georgia Champion Wrestling Incorporated. This happened in 1984. Spectator got her foot stuck between two seams of plastic covering the gymnasium floor. The problem was that the plaintiff sued the promoter of the event and not the school. The court clarified that although the school was the sponsor of the event and the employees places the covering on the floor, the promoter is still charged with the duty of keeping the premises safe for invitees, even though it was the help of the school gymnasium. And so this was an interesting one because the promoter is still responsible. Even though our school does a really good job to try to prevent these kind of things, the promoter is still held accountable for doing the final check. If this happened in our district, there would always be an administrator on duty. Anytime we have an event, there was always an administrator and a security guard. We would assist as much as we could, and we would contact emergency services if needed. We definitely want to maintain a safe place. We would be proactive. by having our athletic director, the administrative security, working the games to try to prevent these types of threats, just keeping an eye on things, making sure things are out of place or preventing people from getting hurt. We would just have to be on top of it to avoid any possible liability issues. And as for professional ethics, the professional ethics is beneficial here because we must all work together to maintain a safe place for individuals for the facilities. And so when we're working games, administrators, security, or athletic director, we definitely want to make sure we're providing a safe environment and we're kind of checking everything and making sure everything is up to par and no one's going to get hurt. And so that's something that we always need to make sure we do, regardless if we have a promoter or if someone else is in charge of the event. Franklin versus Gwinnett County Public Schools. This happened in 1986. Christine was subject to sexual harassment beginning in autumn in her 10th grade year by Andrew Hills, which is a sports coach. Basically, Hills engaged in sexual-oriented conversations, was sexually harassing her, asking her about her sexual experience with her boyfriend. Completely inappropriate, in my opinion. There was a complaint. The problem was there was a complaint filed with the United States District Court, and Andrew was subject to continual sexual harassment of Kristen Franklin. My thoughts, definitely, if this happened in our school, the teacher would immediately be put in administrative leave. They would be escorted off the premises. Wichita Police Department and administration would both conduct an investigation. We would be fully compliant with the Wichita Police Department. And then we would also communicate with all our parents and stakeholders about what's happening and just letting them know that we're looking into it and going from there. We could be proactive by working with our human resource department, creating policies to prevent things like this from happening in our school, and just remind teachers that we're here to teach. We're not here to have those type of relations with our students, and so we should always be professional and never be alone with the opposite sex. Professional ethics here, always maintain a professional teacher-to-student relationship. Never put yourself in a situation where a student or staff member could put you in a sexual harassment case. Don't give out your personal phone number to students, and definitely don't add them on social media. Again, we're here to educate. We're here to help the kids. We're not here to be their friend. Therefore, we need to have that professionalism when we build those relationships with our students. And that's all I have for you today. So thanks for watching. And here is my references. So thank you so much.